Doesn't matter if my cat comes in during this, does it?
No.
You can join in, can't you? So if you hear an odd meow, it's not me. It's
Special guest star, Richard's cat.
It's not my tummy rumbling. It's the cat.
If your stomach rumbled by going meow, then there'll be something wrong with you, I think.
Are we ready?
Well, let's do it. Pod 3, here we go.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Let's get started. Let's go.
Spectrum is green.
The Gerry Anderson Podcast with Jamie Anderson and Richard James.
Well,
And we're back.
we are again.
I mean, nobody particularly asked, but we're back anyway, because we like doing it, don't we?
Yeah, you can't keep us away.
Here we are again with the Gerry Anderson Podcast.
With,
I'm Richard James.
and I'm Jamie Anderson.
Yeah.
And if you want to know who we are, you can go back to the previous episode and you can hear an intro.
Yes, or you can find us on Twitter, Richard N. James, and I'm Jamie Anderson. I am Jamie Anderson.
Yes.
And you can find out all about us there and even follow us and say hello.
Yeah, and use the hashtag Gerry Anderson Podcast as well. Because that's a nice, easy way to keep track of, criticisms.
Yes.
And other stuff like that.
Indeed. So
Can you believe it? My blooming phone's ringing.
well, could you put it on silent or switch it off or something? Who is it? Is it important?
It's a very important man. It's Steve Begg.
Oh, well, I think you ought to take it.
No, I'll call him back after this.
All right.
But he is, very important.
Steve Begg is a big part of the Gerry Anderson world at the moment, isn't he?
He is. Well, he has been since 1983, in fact, as the effects man on Terrorhawks.
Yes.
But now, yes, doing some stuff on Firestorm with me.
So a little bit about this podcast. I think we should explain for people who may have only just joined us, even though we have had previous episodes, of course.
Yes.
It's an opportunity to chat, really, isn't it, about all things Gerry Anderson.
It's just basically people eavesdropping on our conversation as if we had a phone call.
Yeah,
and
that's
then,
essentially it, yeah.
That's what we're doing.
Yeah, so we might have some news for you, we might have some interviews for you, we might have some emails from listeners for you, all sorts of stuff. Who knows?
Yeah, exactly. And if you'd like to keep up with the latest Gerry Anderson podcast episodes, then you should definitely subscribe on whatever thing you use to listen to podcasts, whether it's iTunes or Stitcher or wherever you are. Subscribe to us and please do give us a rating. The more stars, the better, obviously.
Yes.
And if you've got the time, we'd love for you to write a little review for us because it gives us some extra fuel to keep going.
It does.
And others come and have a look. They can go, oh, it's actually good. It's not just, two idiots rambling on.
No, it's not just
That's
It's got a bit of
coincidence.
music as well.
Yeah, there's music too, and interviews from interesting people.
That's right.
Speaking of interviews, who's coming up, Richard?
Well, I believe we have the second part of the Sophia Myles interview, which listeners may have heard in our last podcast. If they didn't, of course, they can go back and listen to the first part first. Sophia Myles, who's famous, well, primarily in the Anderson world, for playing Lady Penelope in the Thunderbirds movie in 2004. But you might also know her as the girl in the fireplace from Doctor Who, of course, with David Tennant. And I have a little...
She snogged the Doctor, didn't she?
Did she snog the Doctor?
Yeah, I think so. Anyway, sorry, carry on.
Right. Now, of course, there is someone else that I know who's connected with both Gerry Anderson's productions and the film of 2004. And that would be Lou Hirsch.
Was Lou Hirsch in the 2004
Now, of course, listeners
film?
may or may not know that I played Officer Orrin in Gerry Anderson's Space Precinct back in the 90s. And
They do now.
They do now. They certainly do now, because I won't shut up about it. And my sort of partner in crime, my police partner, was Romek, played by Lou Hirsch. And he has... Sorry, am I keeping you up, Jamie?
No, sorry.
Sorry.
I was looking... it was a background noise.
Right.
Carry on.
Well, he plays, I think, the headmaster in Thunderbirds
Does he?
at the school. Now, the interesting thing is, if you have read my book, Space Precinct Unmasked, you will know that it wasn't a particularly happy time for Lou filming Space Precinct. And irony of ironies, one of the first jobs he got when he left the series was playing... actually, not one of the first, it was quite a few years later, wasn't it? Playing the headmaster in the Thunderbirds movie.
Amazing.
So there you go.
Do you know if he enjoyed that more?
I suspect he probably did. I think he got on very well with Jonathan Frakes.
Oh, well, there we go.
Yeah, who directed it, of course.
Very good.
So yes, I think he had a good
I
time.
didn't know that because I've always watched the film through a sort of crack in my fingers.
Yes, from behind the sofa. Yeah.
Yeah, just because it's. Ugh.
That's right. So we have
didn't know
part 2 of the Sophia Myles interview coming up, and we also a little later on have another randomiser from Chris Dale, which is bound to be fun.
Yes, his little kind of live watch through of an episode,
Yeah.
and I hope it's better than last time.
Well, what you mean is you hope that the material he's been given to work with is better than last time, not the actual item itself is better
Yes,
than last
thank you
time.
for clarifying that, Richard.
Because I think he had Torchy the Battery Boy last time, did he? Is that
He
right?
did, Torchy and Squish.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
goodness me.
Very hard
Terrible
going.
stuff. Anyway, yeah, fingers crossed it's something better this time. If you would like to send in an email to the Gerry Anderson podcast, then please do so to podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk because we'd love to hear from you. If you've got a question or thought or a viewing experience you wish to share, some news about anything Gerry Anderson going on in your life, or if you've been inspired by the worlds of Gerry Anderson, we would love to hear your story.
And I, in particular, would love to hear from you if you ever met Gerry. I know there are a lot of people out there who did at various conventions or even worked with him. So do drop us a line at podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk and just tell us your experiences of where you met Gerry first or second or third. You may have met him many times. We'd love to hear your stories. That'd be lovely.
Lovely. When did you first meet him, Richard?
I first met Gerry Anderson at my audition for Space Precinct.
Was he actually in the
was
first
there.
audition?
Yeah, and I was amazed by that because very often it's just a camera and the casting director. But yes, he was certainly there. And also, oh gosh, there's somebody else there as well whose name escapes me. But again, it's in the book.
Right, buy Richard's book, everybody.
Available on the
Space
Gerry
Precinct
Anderson
Unlocked.
website, of course.
Yes, and other good book retailers, but mostly us.
Yes.
Right, well,
Yeah, shall we?
I think so.
It's time
What's
for
next?
some. It's time for some news, isn't it? What's
Yeah,
going
here
on
we
in
go.
the Gerry Anderson universe?
Let's find out. Here it is.
Here's the news.
There's always Gerry Anderson news.
Yes.
As you know.
Yes.
But as we're kind of pre-recording a little block here, we're not giving you kind of real-time news, although I sort of am. So, we've got some exciting new videos on the Gerry Anderson YouTube channel. We've got a top 10 Stingray video from AC.
Great.
Clements,
Yeah.
who you know very well, don't you?
Indeed, I do, yes.
In fact, provides you with some Shay Clements accommodation on,
Well,
when
he
you're on
does.
tour. Is that right?
I've been on tour for the last couple of years, and when I visited Belfast, as I am again in August, he's very kindly provided me with bed and board for the night or two.
Isn't that nice of him?
It's very nice. I mean, Gerry Anderson fans, very lovely people. Where would we be without them?
Well, but probably spending our time doing something else other than this.
Much more fruitful, yes.
Yeah, so do check out the top 10 video and leave a comment on the video if you agree or disagree with AC's selection. I've already seen quite a few people disagreeing.
Well. Who would imagine
Interestingly
that?
enough.
Fans in a disagreement mode. That never happens.
over a top 10 ranking.
Yeah.
If you're not into a ranking, then you might want to check out Beyond Anderson, episode 2 by the lovely Chris Dale, featuring Denise Breyer, covering her amazing career from age 5 or something when she was a kiddie in a very early film, right through to the Terrorhawks audio series up until last year.
Amazing. What's
amazing
that?
career.
Some 7 decades of work.
Eight decades,
Good
I
Lord.
think.
Incredible.
8 decades, and the longest serving Anderson artist.
Is that
She's had
right?
an amazing career, and some lovely clips of her on there. So well worth a watch.
Yep.
We have some new merch.
Merch is always exciting.
Yeah, the Gerry Anderson store, shop.gerryanderson.co.uk.
Now, with summer coming, I'm hoping we'll have a few Gerry Anderson themed mankinis and thongs, I would think, coming our way.
Absolutely, we
Maybe
should
some
consider that.
Thunderbird 2 nipple tassels. That's not particularly summery, that's just a fantasy of mine.
No, that you can wear those all year round, Richard. It's not exclusive to summer.
But failing that, what do you have?
Well, something summary, baseball caps, obviously.
Great, yes.
A nice International Rescue baseball cap and a Space 1999 one featuring the Moonbase Alpha logo.
Lovely.
They're rather nice. And also, if you're feeling nostalgic for some audio, then we've got a lovely TV themes album featuring a number of Gerry Anderson themes like Thunderbirds and Firewall XL5, but also some other 60s bangers.
Oh, really?
too. Yes.
And are these original recordings, or have they been
Yes, original
remastered,
remastered recordings.
Lovely.
On CD. It's actually quite an old album, but we just brought it in recently because it's quite fun.
Yeah.
So
Great.
highly recommend that.
On CD only, or is it available for download? or-
CD only currently
Excellent.
from us,
Great.
but it's only $7.99.
Oh,
and
come on. Brilliant.
It's great fun. And a little bit of exclusive news.
Actual
New
news.
news, actual
Yeah,
news. We've just finished off recording and mixing the theme for Gerry Anderson's Firestorm, which is a new puppet series we're working on, which is based on Dad's original work. And it's sounding really, really marvellous.
Yes.
But I can't provide any further information about it at this time.
No, I
I've
must
got to
confess,
say
I've had a few
it's
sneak
fun.
peeks, and it is
Yeah.
absolutely amazing. I'm going to blow your socks off. It's
Oh,
incredible.
bless you, Richard.
No, it's lovely.
Thank you very much. Well, that was a very quick news roundup, but that's it for news.
Well, you see, I mean, the thing is, these podcasts are weekly now, aren't they? So only so much can happen in a week.
Exactly, but it's amazing that all this stuff does happen.
Yeah, that is incredible. That's right. Shall we have a look at some listener emails? Because since we last spoke, some lovely listeners have been indeed sending us some questions via podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk. That's podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk, where you, of course, also must feel free to drop us a line with your thoughts and comments and questions. But we heard from Nikki Hutchinson, who asks you, Jamie, what are your views or thoughts on new Captain Scarlet? I.e. the interest of it at the time, the behind-the-scenes stories, or looking back at it in retrospect. Now, tell us, what was New Captain Scarlet? I'm sure we all know of the original Captain Scarlet marionette series in the 60s. So what was New Captain Scarlet?
Right back in 1999, Dad really wanted to remake Thunderbirds, but the rights weren't available or were not made available to him. So he did a deal to get the rights for Captain Scarlet, and he wanted to do... He was always kind of pushing the boundaries in whatever technique he was using, whether it was puppetry or live action, model work, etc. And he, at the time, was really excited by the potential for CG and what it could do. So he put together a little early mini pilot film featuring original voices Ed Bishop and Frankie Matthews. And that was a great sort of sales tool. It took them another 5 years to raise the finance for it.
Wow.
But they made a full 26 episodes of New Captain Scarlet in 2005, which was made at Pinewood in, I think, the Stanley Kubrick building. And it was a very exciting time for Dad. He was getting on a bit by this point, but still
certainly.
managing a crew of 200 odd people. It was quite a troubled production. They had some real technical problems, issues with the right numbers of people,
Right.
finance problems, all that sort of stuff. But the outcome was pretty special, actually. It was for the time, especially, and watching it now, 13 years on. For CGI, it has aged incredibly well.
Yeah.
But it was packed full of great stories, really nice writing, a lot of which was done by Phil Ford, who others may know from Doctor Who and Sarah Jane Adventures and Wizard vs. Aliens and Coronation Street.
Yeah, wow.
He's done all sorts of bits and pieces. And Dad was very, very, very proud of it. Now, unfortunately, it was sort of destroyed in a double whammy fashion by distribution being, where it goes out on telly or wherever else. So in the UK, it was it really deserved a sort of weekend evening slot. It was quite big, bold family viewing, even though it was CG and it was kind of related to what was then seen as a kid's property.
Yeah.
And it was stuck on Saturday or Sunday mornings on something on ITV called Ministry of Mayhem, and they cut the titles off and cut it in half and dressed up and did silly things in between, and it just never it never reached its full potential. Outside of the UK, it was tied into a distribution agreement with a company that went bust.
Right.
And it was locked in, and so it never really got much global distribution either.
Yeah.
And the whole thing was utterly heartbreaking for Dad, and it was a real shame to see all those, millions of man hours across the series.
Yeah.
Just sort of went to waste. Now, on the plus side, more recently, New Scarlet is on Amazon globally and is available on Blu-ray and DVD, and there's also a soundtrack out. So now, at least, it's getting a little bit more of an airing.
Yeah. And much
But,
beloved by many fans. I mean, it does have a lot of fans. It's interesting you say about your dad not being able to get the rights to Thunderbirds. I mean, people would assume that, Gerry Anderson made these amazing series back in the 60s and during the 70s, and you would assume that he owned the rights. So what happened there?
Just down to a deal done at the time with Lou Grade, who was the sort of financier back in the day, a bit of a TV mogul, and Dad's patron. And Dad signed a deal with him in the early 60s, which basically meant that all rights became ATVs at the time, and those rights have been passed from pillar to post and have now ended up with ITV. So we actually have no control over the vast majority of the properties, which makes life much more difficult if we want to carry on the legacy. But we're doing it anyway.
Absolutely, we're doing it anyway. That's right. Yeah. How interesting. So if you have any thoughts on New Captain Scarlet, if you've seen it and want to give us your opinions, you can drop us a line at podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk. We also heard from Andrew Sierre, who says, are there any plans to record some further Big Finish Captain Scarlet releases? So a bit of a Captain Scarlet theme to these questions. Any more plans for Big Finish to release further Captain Scarlet stuff?
Well, we've done 4 releases with Big Finish of Captain Scarlet, including original material in the mini albums and the TV stories, which are adapted for audio with Ed Bishop recording extra lines. But we've also done 3 Spectrum Files stories, which are kind of enhanced audio books with 3 voices, with Liz Morgan, the original Angel, in there, Wayne Forrester, who was the voice of New Captain Scarlet, and David Graham, the famous voice of Parker, and still going strong in his early mid-90s. Amazingly.
Yeah, it's great.
So we've done plenty already. I don't think there are any further plans at present, but I do hope that we can do some more Gerry Anderson audio work with Big Finish in the not-too-distant future.
Nice.
There's plenty to be going on with Scarlet, and I think you can even get some freebie bits and pieces from bigfinish.com, some freebie stories if you would like to sample what we did.
Yeah, great. So, of course, when people say, we'd love to hear a Thunderbirds audio or a Stingray audio, well, of course, we go back to the issue we were talking about earlier about, well, just who holds the rights to these things and how complicated that is to wade through that minefield.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not up to us what we can do, unfortunately. We can ask and ask and ask.
Yeah, that's right.
But it's all down to a third party as to whether we can do it or not. But we will keep trying because we think they're really fun things to do, and they make the expansion of the worlds of Gerry Anderson sort of much easier and much more accessible too.
Yes, exactly. You're listening to the Gerry Anderson podcast with Jamie Anderson and Richard James. We'd love to hear from you on podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk. Please do subscribe to this podcast so you get notifications each time a new episode drops, which I think is the jargon. And of course,
what the kids are saying these days,
what
Richard?
do you think of that? Because I'm down with them, as you know. And of course, rate and review us. We'd love to know what you think. If you have any suggestions or comments, well, that can only help, can't it? So we'd love to hear from you.
Depends what they say, I suppose.
Yeah, but we don't have to listen, do we, Jamie?
No, that's true. Yeah, but we'd love to. We do really, really want to hear from you because it's much more fun to interact with you, even though it's had a slightly odd delay. And
yes, that's right. Yeah, we should just mention, of course, Fab Live, which is our almost monthly Facebook Live broadcast.
Yes, near monthly.
Yeah, it depends on our availability, but we don't do too badly, do we?
No, I think we do all right.
Yeah.
They're quite long, aren't they?
Oh, well,
I've noticed a trend of increasing length.
Yes, that's right. And of course, the great thing about that is that you can comment as we go, and it's a little more interactive. But you can find that on the Gerry Anderson Facebook page, and we aim for the first Monday of every month. But do keep an eye out because it does change a little bit occasionally.
Yeah, but you can find the date on the Gerry Anderson Facebook page.
Yeah, that's right. And
we do our best.
Yeah, you can see us in real time together.
Why would they want to do that?
Well, I don't know. Somebody somewhere might.
They might do. Anyway, we'd love to see you there. And if you do join us on Fab Live and you've heard about it on the podcast, then do say in the comments live and say, I heard about you on the podcast or this on the podcast. Just so we know. Yeah. Anyway, Richard, shall we hear some more interview from the lovely Sophia Myles?
Yes, that would be great.
Are you sure?
No, honestly.
You like to say that with some more enthusiasm?
I'm an actor. I can say it however you want me to say it.
Oh, that's true.
That would be great.
Perfect. That's how I wanted to hear it. Yeah. So last time Sophia covered all sorts of bits and pieces about how she got involved with the Thunderbirds movie, how it maybe went right and wrong, stuff about Richard Curtis writing lines for Penelope and Parker and perhaps why that was more successful, and even starting to touch on some Doctor Who stuff. So let's see what else she has to say in part 2.
I don't know, it's sci-fi was never really particularly my thing growing up, but for whatever strange reason I seem to have managed to become quite kind of I don't know, involved in the sci-fi world. It's fun. I mean, they're the kindest fans on the planet. But yeah.
Yeah, they're lovely. Was that salt or pepper?
Salt. I'm a real salt
Lovely.
thing. I
me too.
overdo it, but apparently, well, I've got low blood pressure, so I.
You should have more.
Yeah. No, I do. Everyone kind of frowns upon me, but I don't care.
No, it's not it. It's lovely. Yes, good. So sci-fi wise, you've done Thunderbirds and Transformers
Oh yeah.
and Doctor Who. Sticking
Yeah.
quite a few different boxes.
I feel like there's another one. I made this rather interesting film actually with Jim Caviezel and John Hurt called Outlander, and that was Vikings versus aliens.
Right.
So basically, Vikings back in the day, suddenly alien ship crash lands onto planet Earth. So that's sort of, I think, fans of my other stuff, that sort of genre would be interesting to them too.
Yeah. But
yeah.
do you enjoy doing the sci-fi side of things?
Yeah, I do. It's fun because there's lots of, the sets are always really cool and the costumes are cool and there's lots of green screen work, which I find pretty hilarious, because on the day you're looking at a green screen and then there'll be, one of the crew holding a stick with a tennis ball on top of it and you've got to pretend that that's Optimus Prime.
Please say it was more glamorous and elaborate than a
literally
tennis
not.
ball
I
on a
remember
stick.
sitting on a top of a gimbal with the Fab One attached to it, in the back lot of Pinewood Studios, and we were supposed to be there was a moment when we're flying back to Tracy Island and Jeff and the boys in Thunderbird 1 they start to overtake us and do loop the loop round the car. But on the day it literally was two of the crew each holding broomsticks or something up, and we just had to look at the the top of the brooms.
Movie magic right there.
Yeah.
Okay. So to just get back into the 2004 film, Jonathan Frakes.
Yeah.
What was his attitude like towards the original show? I mean, did he have any awareness of it, or did he come into this thing fresh?
He did, and he loved the original. So yeah, I felt particularly sad for him.
I think he took a lot of flack.
He did, and I think actually it was never his fault. I think looking back, well, no, not looking back, I knew at the time that the script wasn't on point, apart from the dialogue that Ron and I had.
Yeah.
And he was stuck between. The thing is, with films of that caliber, often a lot of people wearing suits, have an opinion and try to, put their, they feel like they have to kind of critique it in some way. And I don't think Jonathan was really given a free rein. But I absolutely adored him, and I'd be, if he walked in here now, I'd be so happy to see him.
Yeah. It strikes me as a nice guy, and I do.
I think,
do you think
lovely.
he was probably unfairly victimised by the fans for what happened? But it's
that's
really...
only as well because of his Star Trek fame.
Yeah.
I felt like a lot of fans feel like they knew him because he'd been in people's living rooms on that show and was a public figure. But I felt really, really sorry for him.
Yeah.
And I think it did initially, and I'm sure he's working now and is very successful, but it definitely, his directing career definitely took a hit at the time.
Yeah. Do you think it negatively affected the careers of lots of people who were involved in the film?
No, because Vanessa Hudgens, who played Tintin, has gone on to she's become the most famous and the richest of us all. She's been huge in the Disney High School Musical films, and she's always worked, and she's done really big stuff. I think she just started her own cosmetic line. No, she's...
Oh, wow.
She's finding Brady Corbet, who played Alan.
Yes.
He is now a successful director. His first feature, I forget the name of it, but has won various awards at various festivals. But he always wanted to direct, and in fact, he, at the time when we were shooting, was very vocal about the flaws that he saw in the script.
Oh, really?
And, at the time, because he was only 13, adults around him would sort of think that he was a precocious brat, but in fact he wasn't. He had probably the clearest vision of all of us. But no, he's always wanted to direct, and he's doing very well at it. Who else? Well, Ron is, the best actor on the planet, so he's always worked.
He'll have to give you that tenner later on now.
Yeah, Bill Paxton sadly has left us.
Yep.
But then who else do we have? No, the boys. No, they're all working, I believe. So.
Yeah. And Ben Kingsley, of course.
Sir Ben. Yeah.
Yes, I think he's always doing all right, isn't he?
Yeah.
Well, that's good to know. And what about now? What have you been up to for the last few years? Well, I know, but.
Yeah. So I'm now a mother. I finished Transformers and was lucky enough at that time to meet the love of my life. Having actually at that point given up all hope that I would ever meet someone and have children, and would just kind of retire a spinster with a stack of DVDs to my name, and that would be it. Maybe a few cats. So yeah, I met James, and very quickly, actually very quickly, I fell pregnant, and my son Luke is now 3.5. He'll be 4 in September.
And he's very cute.
He is, and he's he's just he's the light of my life. In fact, this is quite a funny story. James and I argued over what to call him. I knew he was a boy because I found out, and I wanted to find out, and I've always wanted a boy, so I was so happy. But I kept coming up with various names, and they were quite out there, I have to admit, things like Caspian, and James would just take one look at me and go, absolutely not. But I went through with him, a list of, I don't know, at least 25 names, and every single one of them he vetoed. And we were lying in bed about 3 days before I was due to give birth, and I said I gave him my final option. I forget what it was now. Salvador or something. No, I'm joking. But anyway, he basically said no to my final choice, and I was like, right, fine, then you choose it. And he went silent for a while, and he was looking up at the bookshelf, and there was a copy of the Bible up there and various other things. And he said, how about Luke? Now, bizarrely enough, I hadn't thought of Luke, but I thought, you know what, that name really seems to resonate with how I feel about, I don't know, what's inside me. And then I looked up the name, and it said that Luke means bringer of light. And I was like, boom, that's it, fabulous, well done. I said, it's really nice that you chose a solid biblical name. And he looked at me and said, no, I was just looking at my Star Wars DVD up there on the shelf. So.
Amazing.
I know. Anyway.
More sci-fi in your life.
More sci-fi. It creeps in at every corner.
Yeah, that's quite right too. That is an excellent name's origin story.
No. Oh, so I wanted to... you mentioned something to me about your childhood, which made me laugh. I thought it was so funny that you told me that when you were growing up, and I guess any child that has a sort of famous parents, because it's all you've ever known, you don't really take it that seriously. It's like my dad was a vicar, and so when I'd see him in the pulpit, it kind of was just a bit silly.
Yeah.
Him dressed in a white dress. But you told me, because I asked you last time we met for lunch, that I wanted to know how many Lady P, it was all about me obviously, I said how many Lady P puppets are there and how big are they in real life, because I never got to meet one, I was hoping to. And where are they now, who owns them, etc, etc. So tell your fans where Lady P and Parker used to live in your house.
I think a few may know already. So Dad had an original Parker who'd been used for shop displays and had his joints cemented together. And he was refurbished by a guy called Richard Gregory, who lots of fans will know. But Parker was accompanied by a Lady Penelope puppet. And for a long time they were actually on display in Dad's office. But we moved house in 1994 or 5.
Yeah.
And they were retired from office duty, put into a bin bag, and then hung in my wardrobe. So yeah, Lady P and Parker lived in my wardrobe. I don't know why it had to be in my wardrobe. It could have been somewhere else in the house.
Oh.
But yeah, in my wardrobe, in a bin bag. But under that bin bag, she was in all her finery. I think she had a mink coat on. And
did you ever take them out? No,
I wasn't allowed to.
Oh.
No. They had to just stay there in the corner.
Have you still got one now?
No. Sadly, Dad sold them in 1996 or
Peter
7.
Jackson's got one, right?
Yeah, Peter Jackson is a prolific
Is he?
collector. He has the biggest private collection of Anderson stuff, I think, anywhere in the world.
You ever met him?
No, I haven't. No, I've been in
you
touch
should
with his.
try and contact him.
Well, I've
Get
been in
him on
touch
the
with his
podcast.
executive assistant a few times. I would love it if he joined us on the podcast. I don't think he will.
Yeah.
Very busy man. But yeah, but it's amazing how many places there are influence from Gerry Anderson shows, even down to the casting of you in Doctor Who.
But what about with Peter Jackson's
Peter's
stuff?
work. Well, Peter was massively inspired by all the stuff, which is why he's got such a huge collection of Anderson stuff at his place. He could open a museum.
Really?
Yeah, he's got a huge amount of Anderson stuff and Doctor Who as well. He's a big Doctor Who fan.
God, I need to get in touch with him. I'm sure he could give me a job.
Yeah, I think he's got the original Fab 1, puppet size, full puppet scale.
Must have been
car.
quite big, that one. To
Yeah,
fit
it's
both the
probably,
puppets
I don't know, 10 feet long maybe?
in. So how did it work? Like, did you use puppets of various different sizes for various shots, or were they all the same?
It was all the same puppets. All
Do they know
human
the fans
scale.
about what you're doing now? With
Well, very good at segueing into these things. Yes,
I'm not gonna say anything.
we've worked together recently.
yeah, we did.
They do know.
They do.
Well, most of them will know. So
Yeah.
there's a new show that we're working on, Gerry Anderson's Firestorm. And Sophia very kindly supplied a voice for a
Kindly,
character.
like so. What's the word? Gratefully and
Desperately.
honoured.
Oh, bless you. It was great to
was.
have you. She did we had to record a bit part all over the place, but Sophia was in the main recording session when we recorded
Yeah.
with
All the other guys.
Nick Briggs and
Yeah.
what else was in that session? I can't even remember now.
And then Nick kindly had me, when I met him, saw him there again, he kindly cast me in a, what's it called, the Doctor Who, the audiobooks
Yes.
they do. So
Is
that was fun.
Was that a Tom Baker story?
Yeah, so I got to meet him, he was
With
lovely,
Uncle Tom.
so funny.
Do you said when you got the Thunderbirds script, you only read your bit.
Yeah.
That's what he does. That's Tom's
All the
method.
greats do, apparently
Yeah.
Judi Dench does as
Oh, there you
well.
go. But his justification is that as the Doctor, he would not
You would
know
not
what was
know.
going on in the other scenes.
Exactly.
So So you were doing
Yeah.
what the greats do.
Yeah. So when do you think Secret Project is going to...
Well, we can call it Firestorm.
Okay.
It's the other project that's a secret project.
Oh, that.
and nobody
they
knows
are
about
going
that.
to go mad about that.
Well,
I
I
tell
don't
you
know.
guys.
I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
I think they'll like it. But anyway, for now,
I'm in that one too, aren't I?
Firestorm, you are. But Firestorm is the mainstay one, and that's the one with puppets, which is the key thing.
Which I saw, and I have to say, your dad is going to be so proud of you.
Oh, bless him.
So proud of you. Although, that story, do you remember I said, do you ever dream about your dad? And you said you had that one sort of nightmare.
Recurring nightmare.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
recurring, is it?
Yeah.
So what
I get
happens?
it,
So
I get
you
it less now.
You go into his office?
So Dad was very proprietorial over his stuff.
Yeah.
Which is why he found Thunderbirds 2004 film so difficult, because
Yeah.
somebody else had taken his baby and
I understand.
was raising it again.
Was Thunderbirds, by the way, was that the sort of biggest hit he had over his career?
I think, yeah,
Well,
long term.
Terrorhawks are pretty big too, though, right?
Terrorhawks are big in the 80s, but very different group of fans. In fact, Terrorhawks and Thunderbirds 2004 share something in that when Terrorhawks came out, the fans of the series in the 60s and 70s were actually quite disappointed because they'd seen what
really?
had come before. They wanted more of
British
what had come
people are so
before.
we always like it how it was, and don't
Yeah.
like change in that way. Anyway, so go on. So you have no dream.
There's a strange ownership that comes with nostalgia.
Yeah.
But because
Not
he's so
like it was in my day. Yeah.
well. With his proprietorial attitude, I often dream that I go into a room and he's sat there reading a newspaper.
Yeah.
And he drops the newspaper down, looks me direct in the eye, and says, "What are you doing with my stuff?"
So it's
I-
basically him back from the dead.
Yeah, and I
giving
wake
you-
up because it's a great responsibility to try and
course.
keep stuff going in the right spirit, especially seeing
Yeah.
how things have gone when he hasn't had a hand directly involved.
But when you were younger, did you kind of understand how big the things he created were, and B, did you like them or not?
So I had no idea.
No. Where did you guys live back then? Were you kind of out in the sticks, or were you in the city?
Yeah, we had a lovely house near Henley-on-Thames.
Oh, gorgeous.
Yeah, beautiful place in the country, great place to grow up.
Lovely.
Huge garden, friends living just a couple of fields away, so meet up with them in the woods and play.
School nearby and stuff.
20 minutes or so, yeah, lovely place to grow up. And the house was filled with paraphernalia.
Yeah.
He just finished Terrorhawks, or was just finishing up Terrorhawks, and I was born.
Because we're about the same age, aren't we?
I'm 33.
Oh God, I'm older than you.
Well, you look younger than me. There you go. I can guarantee listeners that Sophia looks at least 10 years younger than I do. The problem with being
I'll give
bald.
you all my beauty secrets at the end.
Thanks very much.
Some amazing skincare on the market now. It's taking I'll tell you all about it. You'll love it.
We'll have to post a before and after.
Yeah.
So when I was growing up, there were VHSs around of Terrorhawks and Thunderbirds and Scarlet, and I watched them. I didn't really appreciate it. But 1991, when Thunderbirds came out on the BBC again, and suddenly my friends were all watching it at school.
Of the original.
Yeah, and their parents were finding out that my dad was the creator, and they went crazy for it.
Yeah.
And then Dad was making a new series in 1994 with Space Precinct, and he was very much in the public eye through the first part of the 90s, for sure, while all those shows were being reshown on the BBC. So suddenly I kind of became aware of the cultural phenomenon.
Right. And then how did that make you feel?
Well, it's kind of cool.
Right.
It was sort of meaningless until I was 6 years old, and then it was kind of exciting. And then when you get to your teenage years,
you sort of resent
something like, oh no, and people would take the mickey of the puppet walk. So probably I would say not a day went by between the age of 8 and 18 where somebody didn't do the puppet walk at me in some sort of offensive way.
I used to get that even on the movie. Since I never got to meet your dad, and had I, there'd be a few. Oh, excuse me. I'm about to belch.
Oh no, do it. We'll keep that in, 100%.
Had I had the chance to meet him, I'd quite like to have asked him a couple of questions. You might not be able to answer these, but I'd be interested to know, like, what was, as a child and as a teenager and stuff, because I think that's what we all are, impressions are made on us in terms of how our imagination is developed based on what things we like to watch. Do you know what he was into, like when he was younger? Where did his imagination come from?
He was just obsessed with aviation and technology. Okay. So his brother was a pilot in the Second World War. He was killed over Holland in 1942.
No, how old was he when that happened? Your dad?
So Dad would have been 13.
Oh, and was that his only brother?
Yeah. Oh. He was the hero brother, light of Mum's life and his mum's life. And when they heard the news, Dad's mum's first reaction was...
Should have been you.
Yeah.
Oh.
He got it in one.
I'm so a bit psychic, so
that really, really affected him.
It's dreadful.
So then every show has got a hero brother in it, essentially a hero male pilot.
Yeah.
But he was completely obsessed with aviation, with planes.
Is that what he kind of maybe wanted to do himself, or?
Not really. He wanted to be a plasterer. He wanted to be an architect or a plasterer, but he was allergic to something in plaster. And then he ended up working in a photographic shop on Regent Street, and that then into editing.
And so at what age did he start working with the puppets? Or was there something before that?
Not until the mid-50s.
Wow, and he was how old then? Like
30 no, 20...
Something, yeah,
come
between
on, brain.
20 and 30.
Yeah, 26.
Okay, so pretty young.
Yeah. No, I mean, he made his first big impact before he was 30, I think. So, which is pretty good going.
I just wonder what kind of sparked that thought in his head of, I can make puppets.
Well, it wasn't with puppets. Well,
was it not?
No, he was forced to do it, really. So they had a production company, him and his business partner Arthur Provis, and they were approached by Roberta Lee, who was a writer at the time, and she said, I've got finance to make this series for kids, here are 52 scripts, will you make it? It's 52 by 6 minutes or something, very short episodes. And it was called Twizzle. And
was it their idea, so was it a 2D thing, or?
No, Roberta said, and by the way, it's to be made with puppets. And Dad always...
I don't think they know her name very well. She's famous, right, Roberta?
Yeah, she died a few years ago.
Yeah.
She created quite a few kids' properties in the 50s and 60s.
Okay.
But so they were stuck working with puppets.
Does
Dad hated it.
you have to do puppets, or are the puppets already kind of imagined?
No, it's going to be puppets. Then I think she had character designs. But back then, puppetry was a painted background, puppeteers leaning over the back, and it was all it had almost a 2D quality to it. It was all very clunky, thick rope, rather than strings, all that sort of stuff. And so that made him want to make puppet films respectable, and that's where it came from. It was almost out of embarrassment.
And was that one of his?
At the time, it did quite well, and then they made Torchy for Roberta as well, and then Dad and his business partner started making a puppet western called Fall for the Falls, and that's when they really started to strike out on their own.
Can you still see that? Is there any?
Yeah, you can get. I'll send you a DVD of Fall for the Falls. It's bizarre.
I love westerns.
It's very cute. I mean, it's of its time, so it's a little bit on the
but that's fine.
inappropriate side these days, but.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very sweet. So did you watch Anderson stuff when you were a kid? Did you see like Thunderbirds and Stingray and that kind of thing, or?
Thunderbirds and Terrorhawks, I believe. Yeah, I remember Thunderbirds, like, because there was only, how many channels when we were kids? Like 3?
Probably 3, yeah.
3 channels. And so obviously, and I remember them putting it on, it was either in the evening when you got back, afternoon when you got back from school, or on Saturday morning, I think. So always, I mean, I wouldn't actively seek it out or kind of race home to watch it, but if it was on, I'd always want to see it. And funnily enough, I mean, I was a tomboy, but I did love all the Lady Penelope Parker scenes. Those were the bits that I would look forward to. And then Terrorhawks, I remember, I think I was fascinated with, is it the older character, the scary one?
Zelda, yeah,
I loved a bit of Zelda. So, yeah, no, I mean, it was just a bit like Doctor Who. When it came on, you instantly paid attention.
Yeah.
You never switched over and you stayed in the room. But I wouldn't say I sort of actively went out of my way to, record it or find it. But no, it was definitely.
I mean, you're not the typical hardcore fan of those shows, so that's completely understandable.
No.
So, do you, from what you know of Anderson shows, do you think distill what makes an Anderson show what it is? What gives it that spirit?
Well, it's just definitely, there's a magic there, there's a type of imagination there that you can't really, I couldn't put my finger on it, but I'd know instantly if it was a Gerry Anderson show. And having been privileged to see the thing that you've done recently, I really, really believe without a shadow of doubt that you've totally honoured, his style. Like, I feel like he has, you breathed his life into it somehow.
Bless you, thanks.
I think it's a great tribute, and I'm sure he'd be proud.
It's very sweet of you to say. I'm going to show you the opening title sequence from Firestorm after we finish this.
Yay!
Because it's looking pretty cool.
Okay, good.
If people want to find you and follow what you're up to online, where can they do that? So
I'm on Twitter at Sophia Myles, spelled Sophiamyles. That's on Twitter. And then I've got a website. It's not run by me, it's run by a lovely fan who now I've kind of contacted her, and so she officially does it. That's sophiamyles.org.
Lovely.
I am on Instagram, but that's set to private at the moment, and I think I'm going to change that because I love photography.
And there's very cute pictures of your little boy on there.
There are at the moment, so it's a bit, at the moment it's just for my mate, but I think I'm going to make that public, but I promise I won't just make it selfie upon selfie upon selfie. I know that one.
I'm sure a lot of people would like selfies, though, Sophia.
Well, I'll do a couple, but I don't want to overdo it. How else am I contactable? If you want to write to me, my agent is Lindy King at United Agents. And don't know the address off the top of my head, but they're in London on Lexington Street.
Yes.
So if you write there, she'll forward everything to me, and I do, I'm really slow at getting back, but I will get back.
Of course you will.
But please, if you want anything signed, please send a photograph and a stamped addressed envelope, because I actually don't have any photos of myself.
We'll have to
include
that.
A photo. I've got a nice gold pen that I'll sign it with, but and there's a stamped address envelope, and I'll get it back to you.
Bless you. Well, there you go. You can't ask more than that. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up our lovely little chat?
No.
Well, there we go. End of part 2.
How interesting. Yeah. What a fascinating guest to interview.
I know, well, a bit unusual, I think, in the world of Anderson, because that 2004 film has been so sort of excised, cut out from the fandom, and I think it's just worth exploring different people like that, and she had lots of interesting stuff to say.
Yes.
And ate a huge volume of hollandaise sauce.
Did she?
Yeah.
What,
There was
just
just a
out of a pot or on something?
In fact, at the beginning of part one, she explained that she'd ordered, what was it? Eggs Benedict with a side of avocado and an extra, boat of hollandaise sauce. I don't know how she stays so slim, but she really got through it and enjoyed it, and lots of pepper grinding sound effects.
Yes, yeah, excellent. But it's so interesting when you hear someone sort of shedding light on a corner of the Anderson world that isn't very often explored. It's always good to hear, isn't it? Because we do know a lot of stories from the usual suspects, as it were, and it's always great to hear them, and I'm sure we'll be hearing many more of them. But always nice to get someone in who doesn't often talk about their experience in the Anderson universe. Yeah,
bless her. So do follow Sophia on social media, everywhere, wherever you can, and say hello and tell her that you enjoyed her interview.
Yes.
If you did, of course. I'm sure you did.
Well, if you didn't, just lie, because that's the gentlemanly thing to do.
Exactly, yeah. Whatever your grandmothers say about if you haven't got anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. So, also, it's just worth...
to Twitter, really, wouldn't it? If we were all to apply that particular adage, no one would ever say
anything. To all social media. It's worth saying that all these podcast interviews are pre-recorded. A lot of these people have very busy schedules, so quite often it's sort of at the drop of a hat, or we can't be certain that we're going to actually get them for a while. So please don't send in questions for podcast guests, because we won't have time to arrange.
Or it might have been done already. It
might have been done, and also I don't want to say we're definitely doing this interview. Send your questions, and then we can't do it.
Yeah. Fair enough. So who else do we have coming up, interview-wise?
Coming up soon, we have Lee Sullivan, comic artist extraordinaire and co-host of Fab Live, a one-time co-host. Yes. And also Sophie Aldred,
great
ace in Doctor Who, and a bunch of other people too.
So not necessarily people who've worked with Gerry or for Gerry, but people who have experienced his work or have an interest in it, or have somehow stumbled across it and rather liked it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, Sophie Aldred, who wrote her university dissertation on Thunderbirds, and insisted on being called Scott for a long time.
Is that right?
Which I'm sure, well, when she was a kid, I mean, not recently. Because she loves Scott Tracy so much.
Yeah.
But we'll touch on that in the interview, I'm sure.
Yeah, lovely.
So lots coming up. And if there's somebody you think we should interview, if there's somebody you've discovered works in a sort of expanded Anderson universe role, or is a fan, or has been inspired by their work. In fact, very recently I discovered that Gary Numan is a huge Anderson fan.
Right.
Now I've got no idea if we'll ever be able to get him on the podcast. Wouldn't that be great?
Yes.
But I'm always learning about these new fans and stuff. So if you know somebody, please let us know. podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk. You don't have to know them personally, but if you've heard that they're a fan and you think we might not know them, please send their name in and we will do our very best to get them on the podcast.
Yeah, Gary Numan, that's amazing. Gosh. Yeah.
I know, another one to add to the
himself. You wouldn't remember that, of course, would you?
I don't, I'm afraid, no.
Be before your time. Yeah.
Thanks, Richard.
Well, made me feel very
Thanks for making me feel very young.
Vice versa. Yeah, great. So don't forget to subscribe to this podcast, rate and review it, tell all your friends, link to it. If you're on Twitter, please hashtag Gerry Anderson Podcast. Let people know all about us, because the more people listen, then the more people will get in touch, and the more fun we can have.
Exactly. That. Thank you. Yes.
Yes, just that.
And that's not all.
What?
You'd think that by this point in the podcast, we're out of content and we're done.
That's right.
But that's not the case, is it, Richard?
No, it isn't.
What's next?
Well, we do have something rather special from our regular contributor, Chris Dale, who I know a lot of you know and love. He's provided something for us called the Randomiser, whereby each week he is confronted with a random episode of a random series from the Gerry Anderson universe and is forced to sit through it.
Okay, well, Chris, here we go. Good luck for the Randomiser's second outing. I hope what you get is not too terrible.
There, that should do it. Oh, hello everyone. Welcome back to the Randomiser, and after the less than stellar selection the machine made last week, I thought I'd better bring it in, just for a quick once-over, just to make sure that everything's okay, and and while we're here, I can actually introduce you to the chap who put the whole thing together for me. Excuse me? Hello? That was your cue?
Oh yeah, that's me.
Everyone, this is, I'm sure you know who this is. Well, Brains, what do you think? Is there something wrong with the randomizer?
Well, I've been over all the blueprints. I can find nothing to fault.
Yes, but didn't you say that even though the machine selects these episodes completely at random, I could most likely expect a good episode to start off with?
That's right.
Huh.
I didn't.
Oh.
How's it going, Brains?
Well, slowly, Tintin. It's gonna take some time.
Well, no, if you say it's working okay, then that's good enough for me. Right, if you'd both like to stand back, we will set the randomizer going for its second selection.
I only hope it's right.
And let's see what we have today. Oh, okay. Well, I suppose after last week, anything would be better than another episode of Torchy, and we have done quite well here. This is actually one of your adventures. It is a Thunderbirds episode.
Oh, hey, well done.
Yes, but don't get too excited. It's not one that either of you are in much.
Yippee! Yeah. Oh, gee, gosh.
Tintin, is Brains all right? He appears to be dancing a jig.
I'll look after him.
Ah, thank you.
You better be going.
Yes, must be on my way. After all, we've got a very important schedule to keep to. We have a Thunderbirds episode to watch, and we have to watch it at a very specific time, and that time is 30 minutes after noon. I don't even care that this is not one of the greatest episodes of Thunderbirds. This opening is just so fantastic. It gets me every single time, even when the shots have absolutely nothing going on in them, which, if you look at some of the shots, very, very often there's nothing actually happening. But, the music, the editing, this is all so good. 30 minutes after noon. Now, I'm going to challenge myself here, because I have a feeling that title doesn't actually mean anything. I'm probably wrong. I don't remember it meaning anything, but we're going to find out this time. We're gonna keep watching.
Hey, what's this? Look, just because I gave you a lift, there's no need to. Hey,
Genuinely thinks it's a present. That's quite sweet.
Never mind about that.
Oh, does he often get strange men coming into his car giving him bracelets?
In pursuit of red casement convertible on Highway 6.
This is Irish Stereotype Division reporting in.
This guy's not going to stop. Calling all cars.
If only we hadn't left just a wide enough gap for him to get through, we might have stopped him, but alas, we didn't.
I figured you wanted him.
Armpit scratching puppet. This is so cute. Fire engines! I love the Thunderbirds fire engines. Oh, that's a beautiful fire. That's a beautiful model going up in flames.
Yes, sir.
Spectacular.
Now listen, Flanagan. This is a chance to try the new fire rescue equipment.
Let's test this highly experimental equipment on a very dangerous situation and risk a man's life. That always works out so well when we've done it before.
Thunderbirds are go.
Oh yeah! Sorry.
How many basement floors are there?
10.
And what other access is there to them?
10 basement floors. What have you got down there?
As you know, I got my men down there trying
Oh, you got your men down there. Okay.
You'd better withdraw them.
We're having a basement party! Woo! Oh gosh.
All right, International Rescue.
At the express wish of the International Rescue Team, the entire operation is to be conducted in secret.
Okay, but what about the man at the bottom of the shaft?
Oh, I like that. I really like that Jeff is always more concerned for the people that they need to save than for the glory of it, for the image of the organisation. None of them ever once do this for the fame or the glory. They just do it to help, and that's a really nice message.
They've been in there 30 minutes.
30 minutes? Does that connect to the title? No, because that 30 minutes afternoon is 12:30. It's lunchtime. Now, how much use do you think International Rescue actually get out of this lift thingy? Actually, I suppose they probably get quite a lot, but here's my question. How the heck do they install this lift in the shaft? How do they drag it in there? How do they get it through the lift doors? This doesn't make any sense. It's very cool, but I've never been able to understand how this works.
great.
Do you think when Prescott got home, his wife believed any of this? Like, she's there waiting, ready to go out, and he's like, oh, sorry, honey, I got caught up in a terrorist plot and nearly died. I don't think this would wash. Though I'm sure there are people out there who have come up with lamer excuses to get out of anniversary meals. Ah, so the date is now 13th of the 7th of the 5th. So does that date Thunderbirds in 2005?
A guy with a spotless record too. You know what? We're gonna get to the bottom of this. Even if it means employing a little deception.
Oh, he's not going to dress up, is he? Oh, no. Friday, 24th of December, 2007. According to that newspaper. So this is now 2 years later, possibly 2.5 years later. Scotland! We're off to Scotland! Because every series has to go to Scotland because Gerry Anderson likes Scotland. He really, really likes Scotland. Yeah, this is the point where we're now in what feels like a completely different story, and ooh, painting. Was that a reused painting from a previous series? Who knows? Anyway, this, as I said, this now feels like a completely different story, because it is a completely different story. I don't know if this is one of the episodes that had to have scenes added to it in order to bolster the runtime from 25 minutes to 50. If that's the case, then it's obvious what the added material was. If that wasn't the case, I'd be really interested to see what the original ending for this thing was, because did they just get Prescott out of the lift shaft and that's it? There's no real connection between these two halves. Nevertheless, we are still in Scotland because bagpipes are on the table. Here's another of the lovely insert shots that I know the team were very proud of. This shot of Spy Chappie holding his pen in front of the two puppets. This spy stuff that the show got increasingly fond of over the years, it never quite sat well with me because the whole point of the show is about saving lives and helping people. This it can be good stuff, but it's more from a different genre. It's one of the reasons I'm not a huge fan, please don't kill me, I'm not a huge fan of Lady Penelope, because she's part of this world more than she is the international rescue world. She never really saves anybody. She's just involved with the whole kind of James Bond shtick that the show likes to explore, especially in things like The Man from MI5, which wasn't very subtle. Oh, booms! Oh, here comes Mr. Robot. Don't hurt Mr. Robot. Don't you dare hurt Mr. Robot. Don't you shoot Mr. Robot. You're a bad man. You shot Mr. Robot. There he goes. Actually, if you want to see an even funnier looking robot, if you check out the mini album cover of this episode, evidently they didn't take any photos of this episode at all, or just not the robots, but it's a shot of Series 2, Virgil and Scott, with a even rubbishy little robot that they've obviously just bought from a toy store for like 50 pence, taking up like most of the shot, and Scott and Virgil look so embarrassed. It's a very funny cover, and if this podcast has cover art, I hope to see that funky little robot on there, because he's quite funny. One of the robots is sneaking up on Southern. He's going to be there any day now. He'll get there. He's persistent, this robot. He's on the way. Once he set his mind to something, once he set his mind to give Southern a hug, Southern's going to get a hug. Bot hug! Bot hug! Southern's probably considered many times during his career as a secret agent how he's going to die, but being hugged to death by a robot was probably not one of them. It's quite an embarrassing way to go. I love the way the robot seems to be listening in on this conversation. He's like, hey guys, what are you talking about? You talking about me? You guys? Oh, and here we have the greatest reaction to the news of impending nuclear disaster ever.
One of our agents is sitting on a nuclear explosion that'll destroy half of England. Wow-wee, that's serious. Give me the details.
That is beautiful, John, thank you. Oh, you are a gem. You don't get much to do you? It's a shame. So any bad news you get, you have to be surprised, don't you, really?
How are we going to be on time, milady?
Well, it'll be touch and go. We can't afford any hold-ups.
If only Fab 1 could fly. No, that's silly.
What is your estimated time of arrival at the danger zone?
12:10, Scott. Flying at maximum speed now.
All right, so that'll be 10 minutes past noon.
20 minutes to get into the plutonium.
Okay, now the title does make sense. Right. We're okay. We have title.
What is the delay part?
I can hear you loud and clear.
But don't come in. The robot and I have reached an understanding.
Thunderbird 2 will be here in 5 minutes.
Gotta say, this is not the most exciting rescue we've ever seen. This is actually pretty dull. Because we've done the whole cutting through doors thing in City of Fire, and it was much more exciting there because, the place was on fire. And again, what I love about this and City of Fire is they're cutting down these huge steel metal doors, really heavy, and they just kick the door down with no thought to the fact that there may be somebody standing on the other side who's going to get squished. And in this case, it's even worse because they're propelling the cut door forward with this huge blast of air, and they could kill Southern rather than save him quite easily by slamming a great big metal door on his face. But International Rescue doesn't do that sort of thing.
Now all we have to do is escape to safety, and that should be quite a simple matter.
In fact, let's sit here and talk for a while about how simple it will be to escape. Nothing can possibly go wrong. Oh crap. So what are you going to do? Arrest them maybe? No, just murder them in cold blood, because that's why we keep you around. Lady Penelope is kind of a vicious monster. This is a very odd ending because everyone assumes that the gang is smashed forever, and we do know of at least one person who got away absolutely scot-free. Scot-free. See what I did there? I made a funny, very small funny. I do like this ending. As much as I don't like Penelope, I do like this ending of him imagining her as a spy and not being able to do it even though she is one. Well, there we go. That was 30 minutes after noon. As you can probably tell by what I've been saying, it's not my favourite Thunderbirds episode. There are worse, but not many. It's so strangely constructed. This is one where the padding out the episode really shows, and it ends so far away from where it started that it really does feel like two different episodes smashed together. But anyway, that's our first Thunderbirds episode down on the Randomiser. 1 down, 31 to go.
Well, thank you, Chris. Another exciting instalment of the Randomiser. 30 minutes after noon. That's a good pick, isn't it?
Well, it's all right. I mean, as you heard, Chris kind of isn't the biggest fan of it, and it is one of those episodes because originally Thunderbirds was going to be made as 25-minute episodes, and then Lou wanted it to be bigger and more epic, and they became 50 minutes.
Right.
And it does feel a bit like it was one of those 25-minute episodes that they then had to pad out.
Yes.
So it feels like two different stories jammed together, like Chris said.
Yes, that's right.
So
yeah,
but it's Thunderbirds. It's still great, isn't it?
It's much better than Torchy. Let's face it.
Well, yes, even the worst Thunderbirds episode is far superior. To
But
the very
what's
best
so
of
interesting, of course, is that you see the progression, don't you, from the early series all the way through to Thunderbirds and Captain Scarlet, and then into your live action stuff. You see a progression throughout Gerry's career, which is fascinating.
Yeah, always pushing the boundaries.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Every time, and Thunderbirds has got a really kind of filmic look and feel to it. I'm hoping, having heard that, people will be inspired to go and watch some classic Thunderbirds.
Yes, exactly right. That's right.
You must do.
Yeah.
If you're in the UK, you can get it on iTunes and the ITV player and all that sort of stuff, and DVD and Blu-ray. It's available everywhere. So if you don't already own a copy, what are you doing?
Yes,
go and get yourself a
search
copy
for it
now.
and watch it. Absolutely. Yeah,
Lovely.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us once more. I suppose we better thank Sophia Myles for her wonderful interview that she gave for us.
Yes,
spliced in two
Sophia.
over the last couple of episodes. The interview, that is, not Sophia Myles. And to Chris Dale again for another Randomiser, and for all people who got in touch on podcast at gerryanderson.co.uk.
Lovely.
I guess we'll see you next time.
Yeah, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review, and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
We're going to keep saying it until you do.
Yeah.
So just
and then
do
we'll
it.
keep
Just get
saying
on with
it
it.
even when you do.
Yeah, and I should tease next week's interview.
Go on then.
Is with the lovely Lee Sullivan. So you can look forward to that.
Excellent.
Come back next time, and we'll not hear from you or see you then because it's a podcast.
Well done, Jamie. That's very succinctly put.
Thank you very much.
See you all
That's the end of Pod 3. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Stage 1 complete.
Let's go.
Spectrum is green.
Right, well, I mean, that was full of
Genius.
Fluid, flowing genius.
All my legs have gone to sleep.
Oh dear, were you sitting in the lotus position?
Oh no, I was just kneeling on the floor.
Are you kneeling? Why are you kneeling?
Well, I did get my beanbag out, but it was making too much noise as I was moving.
I beg your pardon.
You heard.
Thank God it's a podcast.
So I decided not to sit on the beanbag, but just to squat on the floor.
Right. God, that's very
It's
good of
interesting,
you.
isn't it?
Yeah, the pain that you go through for this podcast.
I know. Oh, people have no idea. I'm a martyr to my knees, I tell you.